So let's take a look at Chinese city planning before the 6th century CE. All right, so this include the Chinese cities up to the Sui and the Tang dynasty. Excuse me. So we actually looked at some cities from the Shang dynasty, and but we know very little about Shang dynasty Chinese city. The city of Yin, or the last capital of the Shang dynasty, is the only kind of large-scale capital city from that period. And we also don't know much about the Zhou dynasty capital city, because the archaeologists had recovered very little about the city in Xi'an and in Luoyang, which were kind of the capital of the Zhou dynasty. But we do know more about the local cities from that period. We know that Zhou dynasty, which was divided into a Western Zhou, Eastern Zhou. Eastern Zhou divided into the spring and autumn period and Warring State period. So you have all, these dates here. And during the Eastern Zhou period, some of those local cities, local states and kingdoms became really kind of powerful, and more powerful than the Son of Heaven, which lived in Luoyang. So this is the city of Luoyang. And this is Xi'an. This is the capital, the Xi'an area, all right? This is the capital of the Western Zhou dynasty. This is the capital of the Eastern Zhou dynasty. But then there are many kind of local states, and later some of those states declared themselves kingdoms. So we are going to look at two cities. One is the capital of the state of Lu in Qufu. So that is a relatively small state in the Eastern Zhou period. Another city, Linzi, which is the capital of the Qi state. Qi is a large state, right? So this is the Qi state. It's primarily in today's Shandong province. Their capital city had been excavated, so we know fairly well about their layout. So in the understanding of Zhou dynasty city planning, there's one document we must keep in mind. And that is also from the Book of Rites, and one of the 3 books of rites. And that book is called the Ritual of Zhou. In the Ritual of Zhou, the layout of the city for the Son of Heaven is given from the section on the record of craftsmanship. All right, in that volume, it said, when the master craftsman constructs the state capital, he makes a square 9 li on each side. Li is like the Chinese mile. It's smaller than the British mile, but it's can be compared to the mile, translated as the Chinese mile. So 9 li in each side. Each side has 3 gates, within the capital are 9 north-south and 9 east-west streets. The north-south streets are 9 carriage tracks in width. The court is located in the front, which means the south. So when the Chinese refer to direction, they always imagine someone facing south. So the front is south, the back is north, the left is east, the right is west. So it's kind of opposite to the way we read map today. The court is located in the front and the market in the back. On the left is the ancestral temple, and on the right are altars of soil and grain. So later, excuse me, illustrations made this kind of a very, for me, it's kind of a very crude, rudimentary illustration showing a square, 9 li on each side. So it's kind of 81 square li. 3 gates on each side, and then 9 streets and 9 avenues. So there's the palace, the court in the front. And there should be, this one didn't even illustrate the market. The market should be located in the back. And on the left or the east is the ancestral temple. And then on the right, or imagine you are facing south, on the right or west, should be the altar of soil and grain. Altar of soil and grain is simply meaning the state altar, the altar of the country, because soil and grain is a Chinese term for regime, for state, for country, or the nation. That's basically the ancient Chinese term referring to a country. We call it soil and grain, or especially the country associated with a specific regime. So there's national altar, then there's ancestral temple. Those ancestral temple, of course, is the royal ancestor, the ancestor of the Son of Heaven. So that's the basic layout. This is the ideal. This is a theory and ideal, right? In archaeology, no Chinese city had been recovered in such a kind of idealized form, but it has impact on later Chinese capital design. Whenever someone wanted to claim to be the Son of Heaven, they would try to kind of construct a city a capital city according to the Zhou kind of a orthodox, right? So let's call it an orthodox, an ideal. Because Confucian classics became such a great source of authority. So whoever wanted to claim to be the Son of Heaven would try to find legitimacy in the Book of Right, in the Confucian classics, and constructing a Mingtang or constructing an ideal city for the Son of Heaven, following as closely as possible to this model became a claim to authority. All right. In reality, no city was constructed exactly like this, but probably all the rulers had something like this in mind when building their cities. So on one hand, we have ideal. Some cities are more or less like that. For example, this is a capital city for a very small state called the state of Yan in the south. And its city is characterized by kind of different layers, concentric layers of walls. It got an outer city, surrounded by moat, and an inner city also surrounded by a moat, and then a palace city surrounded by its own moat. So kind of it's very idealized, right? It got an absolute center, and then it got those different hierarchical layers. The palace for the ruler, the inner city for the aristocracy, and the outer city for the common citizens. Kind of idealized. But most cities are more following practicality, right? For example, this is a Sui dynasty city, Feng, but based on a Zhou dynasty, earlier kind of city. It is not concerned that much about orientation. For example, this is the cardinal direction, but the city is obviously not oriented toward that. And it is also quite irregular in shape, not in perfect square or circle. It is more oriented according to the topography, the natural element in the landscape, the rivers, the mountains, etc. So this kind of practicality has more impact on the actual building of cities. And this concern for practicality is later kind of summarized in the Feng Shui theory, right? The Feng Shui theory basically direct the practice for the site, for the construction, for the orientation of a city according to the natural topography. One supreme principle for Feng Shui theory is to have a site that has the greatest benevolent qi, the term of qi, which means, literally, it means breath, like breathing. The extended meaning is energy or essence or those life power that just like one becomes dead when they lost their breath. If a site has no qi, has no breath, then it is lifeless, all right? So when deciding where to build your house, where to build a city, where to put the ancestral tomb, one needs to identify those locations, those sites with benevolent qi, good breath, good life energy, all right? So what is the site for best qi? It is, according to the Feng Shui theory, it is the site that has a river and a mountain surrounded. The ideal location is, right? So this again shows north arrow, the north. So an ideal site for the best qi is to have a river flowing to the north, to the south of the site, and a mountain range shielding from the north, which is understandable because China is located in the northern hemisphere, and the cold, harsh winter wind come from the north. And also to the north of China, north of the Great Wall, is the invading nomads. So it seems like both in nature and in the human sphere, or those harmful energy, harmful kind of bad forces came from the north. So the north needs to be protected by a mountain range. The south should be open, because to the south, it is the direction of the sunshine, and it is all the good energy. You know, the spring breeze, the summer good energy come from the south. So an ideal site should be shielded, screened by a mountain range to the north. And then to the south, there's a river, and that river should not be too rapid. It should be a slow, kind of flowing river. And that river valley in between the river and the mountain is a good place to build a city. And there are other details, like, you know, you need to have smaller hills on the side, and then there's also should have a screen hill to the south, kind of give some privacy to that site. And that's one thing, you know, Feng Shui in Feng Shui theory. Another thing I wanted to point out in the Feng Shui theory is, in the Feng Shui theory, everything is imagined alive, all right? Just like the concept of qi, which means breath, right? Nature, the mountain, the river, they were all imagined as if they have life, as if they are part of a body, a cosmic kind of body. For example, the term, excuse me, the terms used in Feng Shui theory are kind of biological terms. For example, that mountain in the north are called the dragon vein. These are like, you know, the main arteries in your body. And this vein in ancient Chinese medicine does not only means the blood vessel, but also, more importantly, it is the vein for energy. So it is like the imagined tunnel for the energy to run through your body. And that basically make your body alive. So it's more abstract than the modern medical term of the vein. Right? But it is a medical, it is a kind of biomedical term. And then the low heels are called left shoulder, right shoulder, left arm, right arm. So the site is imagined as a human body. So you have the mountains are like shoulders and arms. And then those kind of natural element are imagined as the energy vein. So it's that kind of a theory. It is certainly mystified. There's a mysterious fog shrouding that theory, but the basic idea is clear. It is trying to identify a place where you can have good energy. And in reality, such a site block the winter wind from the north and welcome the life-giving sunshine from the south. And it's accessible to life-giving river water, right? So the basic idea is very clear. Most Chinese city actually has more to do with Feng Shui than that kind of idealized theory from the Book of Rites. Now let's take a look at a, excuse me, a spring and autumn period local city. This is the city of Qufu. It is a capital of the Lu state from the spring and autumn period. The city is considered as have more to do with the Book of Rites because it's relatively square in shape. not exact, not as accurate as those kind of ancient Egyptian complexes, but it could be considered as square in shape, right? And high platforms are discovered in the middle part. So these are all high platform. And when we see high platform in old ruins of Chinese cities, we know that's palace. That's royal architecture or architecture belonging to the rulers because of the Taixie tradition, right? All those monumental architecture were elevated on rammed earth platform. So this must be the palatial part of the city. And behind it, there are a lot of workshops. So these are, a lot of them are workshops for example, metal work, for pottery, even for kind of bone tools. There were all craftsmen specialized in shaping those bones into decoration or into sharp needles, etc. So there are workshops. Probably has something to do with market, which conform to the theory of having the palace in the front and the market in the back, because these all have something to do with trading. And the streets in the city runs mostly kind of in the cardinal direction. So that's the direction of north, right? So there are streets and avenues. There's another theory in the pre-Qin dynasty city planning called the building the Cheng or inner city to protect the monarch, and construct the Guo, which means outer city, to keep the people. So it seems that the from the early time on, there was a tradition of building two cities in the same location, a smaller city, which is just for the ruler, like what we have seen in the previous, city of Yan, those many layers. So that might be considered as Cheng, and this might be considered as Guo, and that is to protect the ruler, and this is to keep the people. And so the Qufu city, not necessarily exactly like the theory as in the Book of Rites, but it is more or less confirming to it. So I'm going to end very soon. Let me see. Yeah, let's just pick this one. I just want to show you a real example that has been discovered with two cities. This is a city of Linzi, which is the capital of Qi state, the bigger state. There is a smaller city, and there is a bigger city. So this must be Cheng, and this must be Guo. And this is to protect the ruler, and this is to keep the people, right? So, and indeed, in the smaller city, a huge platform has been discovered, and these are indicators of palace, right? So this is the kind of a modern city of Linzi from the Ming-Qing period. But the spring and autumn period, Linzi has the kind of Cheng-Guo system. And they are not one inside of the other, quite different from Book of Rites as well, but they do have Cheng and Guo system. So, all right, I'm going to stop here.